Hello everyone. Welcome back. uh, Hope everybody's doing well. By the way, as one is wont to do, there is going to be echoey. Oh, my bad. This should be better, I think. Okay, good. Yeah, no, it was because at first I couldn't find my headphones, so I was trying to like connect it with another device, and it was just not gonna work. So I'm like, I have to find these headphones. Um, so, um, there's gonna be an ad break in just over 4 minutes. If you would like to get out of that, you can always, get a Twitch subscription for $5 or $6 on mobile. But if you'd, uh, but also, you can also, if you're active in the chat, then there's a good chance that people might see that, you are a very much respected and uh, well deserving chatter and gift you a sub. But again, it's best if you do chat in the chat, so to speak. But yeah, obviously on YouTube it's a little bit different, but I wanted to start actually with want to make sure that this okay. Let's see here. I wanted to start actually with the breaking news. Sorry, it's just like suddenly I did this. Yeah, I think it's good to start with the breaking news because, you know, it's breaking news. So, as some of you might know, as I just put in the Twitch chat, there is apparently a coup, a military coup, underway in the plurinational Republic of Bolivia after the military commander. I don't remember which rank he has. I think he was like I think he probably was a lieutenant general or something like that. I don't know exactly, because some people were saying alferres, which means lieutenant, but I'm not sure that that actually is his actual title. So we're just gonna watch Bad Empanada because he's like literally like the closest person right now to the to what's going on. So
Straight to the point, there is presently an ongoing, very serious military coup attempt in Bolivia. It has been denounced as a coup attempt by the vice president in a statement that he made on Twitter, and the president himself has denounced unauthorized military mobilizations in La Paz, the administrative capital of the country. The context for this is that yesterday, Jose Zuniga, the commander of the Bolivian Armed Forces, made a statement to the media where he said that he may order the military to arrest ex-president Evo Morales if he runs in the MAS party presidential primaries next year. Evo Morales running for president again is something that would be completely legal, so this statement cannot even be spun as just the military trying to enforce the law or anything. It was quite simply the chief of the armed forces declaring his possible intent to interfere in democracy if things don't go the way that he likes. So President Luis Arce, who is currently in something of a conflict with Evo Morales for the MAS party's presidential candidacy next year, nonetheless immediately fires Zuniga because obviously in Bolivia, the military are not allowed to intervene in civil matters like that. And in response, it appears that the ex-military chief has ordered troops loyal to him to attempt a coup against the democratically elected government of Bolivia. And this
look, I don't know about y'all, but this looks rather bad. Hola Daymao. It's so good to see you. Espero que estés bien. Que estés teniendo un buen día. And yeah. But I don't know about y'all, but I think that, like, you know, if you're gonna call anything a coup, I definitely think sending one of whatever this is into a government building kind of qualifies for that. I don't know. There's just something about like these cars. They're not. I know they're not cars, but you know what I mean. These vehicles, right? And coup attempts. I don't know. There's just something about them. Hello, Swims of Wales. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hello, Looney Tunes. Welcome in. Welcome in. So, like I said, this is an ongoing situation, you know, recent development. And I think it is kind of interesting that they are talking about it like there's tension in Bolivia. I think that that's an understatement at this point, but you know.
This is very, very serious. There are troops everywhere. The government is not mincing words on this. Quite simply, it is a coup attempt directed at the fact that they do not want to allow the possibility that Evo Morales...
And that's what in Spanish golpe, like golpe, which literally means like if si le das algo un golpe, if you give something un golpe, like that's literally like hitting it, right? Hurting it. Oh, good to hear, Damon. So, kind of like how coup in French. I'm covering Bolivia right now. So you came at the a hit. Yeah, exactly. In the same way that coup in French means to cut, like couper means to cut, right? So
could run in the upcoming Bolivian elections next year and win. Zuniga has announced in a statement to the media that he will form a new cabinet and that Luis Arce remains president for the moment. Now, he obviously doesn't.
Bad empanada. Did you just call Luis Arce Luis Arce? It's good to see you too. Oh yes, I know. I started it at noon, thinking it would probably be done right around now. And then have someone like drop the link for this in there, but
not legally have any sort of authority to dictate these things, but he's also the one who is currently occupying some of the most important strategic locations in the country with armed troops. So perhaps what he says will nonetheless go. But this is still a developing story, and yeah, by the time you watch this, things may have changed, but
yeah, from what I understand, things have changed. And thank you so much, Looney. I appreciate that. Whoa, no. I don't know why I decided to do that. Okay, so, like I said, not exactly the best of news to start with, but, you know, it's news. The dude is essentially saying that, like, the guy that, I guess, wants to, like, take over. I think some Looney Tunes stuff happened with the coup, trying to find sources. I mean, like, what essentially the guy said, the guy who's standing up against the government, right? The one who's trying to, you know, who's causing the coup, is essentially saying that because Evo Morales, right, the guy who, you know, essentially, I heard the leader was arrested by his own men. I mean, we literally just saw, like, an armed personnel carrier, like, legit just, like, go into a government building. So, like, I don't know. Like, that's a little extreme even for me. Like, that's a little bit, like, I don't know. That seems like stuff is, you know, stuff is going on. But the point being that he said that he does not want, right, for Evo Morales, who again was cooed out of his third term as president, right? Hello, Neuro Riot. Oh, that's that he wouldn't allow for Evo Morales to run for an actual third term, right? After he was kicked out of the country, right, during the... Oh, of course. I mean, again, at the end of the day, Bolivia still has, you know, those, like, vast lithium reserves, cobalt reserves, etc. I mean, remember that, like, Elon Musk, right, last time that there was a coup, essentially was, like, kind of acting like a 4-year-old and being like, haha, like, it's your fault, right, that it... Is it? Huh. Oh, okay. Was like, you know, haha, you know, like, you got cooed. No, it wasn't echo. Weird. It echo for like 20 seconds. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I turned off the other sound thing that could have an echo, I guess. But I'll make sure to turn off everything else. There was, but now it's gone. That makes me think of the song Amazing Grace, right? You know, I was lost, but now I'm found. Yes, and I'm also streaming on YouTube for your viewing pleasure as well. Yes. I am mediated for your pleasure. So let me just speed this a little bit up because I'll put it at 1.25. Let me know because this is 22 minutes, but you know, in fact, Ducky, you know, holy lazy duck, right? Like you've had me talk about microfinancing, right? And kind of like the perils that come with it and how it affects, you know, the global south in particular, right? But like finance bros are just like this other side of the coin. I don't even know if I can even say that because they're like their own coin, which is obviously a cryptocurrency that is literally like the entrance to the capital city of hell, you know, in the 7th level of, you know, Dante's Inferno. Know what I mean? Yes. Yeah, I wanted to make sure, you know, yeah.
From a broke college dropout to a multimillionaire, today I'm going to share my whole story with you.
Lately, I've noticed my perception of finance YouTubers slowly.
And one thing I do want to stress too is that they love to bring up the college dropout thing so much. And there is a really good book that just came out with a brand new edition. Yes, if you would like to help me out with my research, because we're 82% funded on this book, and we're so close. We're so close. I'm so close to being able to read Aaron's book. So if you would like to help in any way, please, you know, Throne is one of the ways, as well as, you know, leaving me a tip here on Twitch or other ways as well, right? Will I cover Kenya too? Yes, I'm planning to cover quite a few. I just wanted to start off with this story because they were these group of like and I'll bring up the other video too, but these financial YouTubers, right? That also stream, right? Like they're also streamers. Essentially got sued for $1 billion. And that's with the B, right? You know, mil millones de dólares, ¿verdad? En milliards de dollars, right? Financial gurus were the term. Yeah, financial gurus, right? Exactly. And one of the things is that, you know, a lot of them try to play this whole, I started from the bottom, but now I'm here, but, you know, obviously quoting the song. Right, and then they also like to make it seem as though like that they really had nothing, right? That they had nothing, and now look at everything that I have. And I actually like this dude right here, Kevin. Oh gosh, what's it? Pathrath or something? I don't know. He's like German or something. He's, you know, essentially grew up in America. I think he was, I don't know, his parents are German, I think. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. Point being is that this dude ran for okay, when California, when we had our recall election against, you know, the current governor, right? Who, I mean, just in terms of like being able to function as a person, you know, that doesn't cause great concern for, you know, for their well-being. Would definitely be a better candidate than Biden, at least on that level, right? And then also, you know, but I don't know what his take on the whole Palestine. Well, I think I actually do know, but I don't want to really. Anyway, point being is he ran to be one of the like, if they do recall the governor, then they would vote for him instead. His campaign was like the dumbest thing. I'm sorry, like I've seen a lot of just bad campaigns, and I'm sure there are probably, ones that are just, literally like marker on some construction paper, right, that are better than this, than his was. Because his was like, oh, I started with, it kind of like Trump, like, oh, like I started by investing in real estate. Yeah, like poor people don't invest in real estate because we have no fucking money. We don't we cannot get passive income from being a landlord, right? So genocides, coup, so much happening in the world. You know, it's interesting because I often get asked by people like, you're a historian, and you work with genocide, and also, I mean, this is usually genocide studied like academic units are often called genocide and Holocaust studies or something along those lines. And people are always like, how do you deal with, having to read all of this stuff all of the time? Because it is depressing, right? It is. But then I think of the immense successes that have happened, right? In, the sort of revolutionary optimism that we are supposed to have as leftists, right? And it's like there's this limit where it's like no matter how bad things get, the idea of like hasta la victoria siempre, right, just rings in my mind, right? That it's like, we've suffered for eternity, right, in the past. We're all, we have a whole world to win, and that is something that comes to my mind anyway. And again, these are quotes that yes, comes from Mao, comes from Che Guevara, whatever, but it also goes into my scholarship as well, where it's like the Warsaw Ghetto uprising was not done in vain, nor it doesn't matter that what ended up happening happened. What happened in Gaza on October 7th was not done in vain, right? I don't believe that on any level. I've met some people who claim to be leftists that are like, they shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, you have no right to tell them how to seek their liberation. And it's in focusing on learning from the past and thinking of how to build that solidarity with other people so that these horrible things that we have to go through right now literally will never have to bother us ever again is just such a, for me personally, again, that's kind of how my mind works, I suppose. But I understand that it can make you feel very doomerish, I get that. And that's totally legitimate. Yeah, in fact, I think it's like I literally have it as a command, because I've always been like, this has always been a thing, like, of course, Philippinex, I appreciate that, thank you. We cannot tell and oppress people how to go about their liberation, ever. If you want to help in the ways that they want you to help. Don't try to speak for them. Don't ever do that. Okay? Like, this is why I will educate on historical matters, but I will never speak for, right, like, indigenous communities in Mexico that I have no relationship to, right? That I cannot speak for them. I can tell you the history of it in terms of from a historian's perspective, but I will always recognize that their struggle for liberation is part of our collective struggle, but it's still their particular struggle as well. It's both at the same time. And that's why I always get very upset at a lot of people, particularly that claim to be leftists, that do want to tell oppressed people, especially when they are at their worst, right? That is to say, when all the odds are against them, when, like right now, what's happening in Gaza, that they literally are telling them, like, respectability politics BS, right? Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, just get out of here, you know what I mean? Anyway.
Shifting from educational resource to scammy salesman. I'm not the only one.
I would say that they were never an educational resource. Like, and so what I mean by this is, anybody who is teaching you about, like, finance and stuff like that, thank you, Philonix. Anybody, when it comes to finance stuff, it is obviously a game of, do you have money up front or not? Right? That's all it is. I mean, like, I once knew someone who, oh, thank you so much, Looney. I appreciate that. And so one of the major things is that that this person that I knew at the time was that I'm not even joking, they were given $8,000, which isn't even, like, for me, for the people in my neighborhood, that is a lot of money, right? Like, that would change a lot of things for a lot of people, right? Like, I mean, I know people that have stoves that, were new back in, like, 1983, that only have one of the things works, right? But they still make their olla frijoles, they still find a way to make it work, right? And, getting $8,000 would change materially their situation. But this person was, like, telling me, and almost in a kind of laughing way, like, oh, it was nothing, right? It was like, oh, I put it in some, like, risky, I forget what he said, like some risky ETFs or something like that, and lost all of it. And I'm like, you were given $8,000 by your parents, so that way you could, build up invest it or whatever and you literally squandered it by just, like, essentially investing in crypto, and just, like, ridiculous.
Thinks this.
Financial YouTubers are a cancer. Time and time again, they keep getting away with shilling terrible advice to their massive viewer base, and there's never any accountability.
There's a growing sentiment from their followers online that feel the exact same way, but it wasn't always like this.
And again, like, I don't know whether or not this, this person here, that is a lawyer, but yes, like, we will go into the lawsuit against Graham Stephen and also Kevin, right? Like, that is when they began to use, and what's the weird thing too, is, like, they will also use, like, Andrew Tate like language, right? Like manosphere language, which again is because the vast majority of their following is going to be young, cis dudes, right? And they manipulate, they like that, the language that Andrew Tate et al. Use, right? It is manipulative, but that's why they are successful at their scams, right? Like for people who understand, like, intersectionality and et cetera, right? Like, we can see how that doesn't make any sense, right? What they're saying, what they're promising, a lot of the time. But for someone for whom, that answers questions that they have never had answers for before, right? And sort of gives them a cohesive, in their mind anyway, worldview. You can see why it, like, and also another thing too is because we also live in a very reactionary time, particularly in the United States, right? Like, I kid you not, one of the orgs that I've worked with many leftist orgs in Mexico. You know, I mentioned this before. I used to be the director of one that was multi-tenancy. It didn't matter whether you were an anarchist, a Maoist, whatever. We put all of those differences aside, said, you know, whenever you are in your organization's, meeting space, on your own, you can do anything you want for your, for your education, right? Your leftist education. But when we're here, that's not what's at the heart of why we need to work together, right? Here we have to do everything to help other people, right? To help the working classes. So this was a time when we would do things like, food box runs, right? So one of my house in Mexico was a place where we would gather food, right? Put them in boxes and then get them distributed across the city, right? So again, it was trying to be there in person for the people that needed it most. It wasn't there to, blah, 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 right? But it's a very different thing in the United States, where you have very reactionary aspects, right? To the point where the United States, right? The United States has a lot of anti-trans legislation, right? Particularly, they use kids as a cudgel, right? They use them as a way to get their foot in the door to then ban stuff for trans people in general. Whereas the state that has my hometown in it, Tijuana, right, Baja California Norte, they literally just passed a law with a huge majority of the people there, of the people in Congress, that not only does it establish protections of the law of gender identity, which is national, right? Does it now apply it to children under the age of 18? But it also goes beyond that too, where the same things that that adults can do, right? They don't have to wait until they're 18 to be able to go into the registro civil and ask for their name to be changed if they're already socially transitioning, right? Like, and that is stuff that we have worked for, very hard. And this was just recently passed. And I brought it up in Irene's chat quite a bit, but like this is like, that has shown to me this immense difference of the reactionary nature of, even in California, people who will say, blah, 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 but just leave the kids alone, right? And it's like, even in a place that people think of as like lesser than low, than the lowest, rung of hell, right? Tijuana, which only proves to me they have no idea how, what Tijuana or Mexico is about. That was the state that passed a law that protects trans children, right? Trans and non-binary children, and says that they shouldn't be forced to wait and have to be called by a name that is not theirs. They know who they are, right? And when they are capable of making these decisions, right? They don't need to go to therapy. They don't need to do any of this stuff. If they are socially transitioning, if they are already doing all of this stuff, then who are we to intervene and say, oh no, you have to wait till you're 18? That seems to me far more logically consistent and ethical than to force the, But of course, people can disagree with that, and I understand, but. Hello, Cat. Welcome in. It's so nice to see you. With inflation at 7.5%, you lose half your money in 9 years. The only way to outperform this consistently I have found is crypto. Just this year, I've already lost half my money. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh my gosh. Also, cat, I need to let's see here. Okay. Yeah, like crypto. But also another thing is taking on the direct advice, because one of the things that Kevin does, quite a bit, is that he will give you stocks to pick, but like but of course he says, oh, this is not financial advice, but then he's giving you like specific things, right? Right, you know. It's awesome that you did that, because lots of people want to help, but organizing itself can be hard. So providing an opportunity for people to give is great. Yeah, it's like I said, you know, like even here in LA, I'm always doing stuff for my community and for other communities. I've always been a person that has supported mutual aid literally in any way that I can. In any way that I can. That is you know, even if it's something as simple as, you know, helping people buy clothes, you know, helping, you know, giving them food boxes. Like literally, I know people that, you know, I know that I will say, hey, you know, do you need food or do you need something else? And like, I will bring it to you, you know. Oh yes, you transitioned when you were 5 and now you are 12. Oh, you saw that as, I mean, 7 years is a long time. Right. And like the thing is that like it's not like, oh, like 1-year-olds are going to be doing this. The point is that when they are mature enough to go themselves and ask, right? It's giving them a bit of agency, right? And it's like in the United States, that kind of doesn't, like, that is never really taken into consideration, right? That like at 16 years old, right? For example, you know, you already know certain aspects of yourself, right? So concretely speaking, right? And so I think that like that's more what the law is for. That like if there are 16-year-olds, right, that already live, right, according to their, you know, to their correct gender and everything, why should they be forced? And in fact, you know what's really interesting is, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's it definitely was not a pro queer movie, definitely not. But like the fact that like almost 20 years ago there was a movie, like a, you know, blockbuster essentially, that included someone who was transitioning, who was a trans woman, right? But had not had bottom surgery, and like literally, like, you know, there were some aspects where you saw like the reaction, like a reactionary response to it, but then you had it where, you know, the things resolve, right? Because but one of the things is, you know, having, you know, not having the agency to change your name to the correct name or change your gender marker, right? And so, yeah. Do most tend to give specific stock advice? Yeah, like if you join their newsletter or whatever, or Kevin, what he does is that certain streams, he'll show you his portfolio, right? He literally shows you his portfolio. Because, you know, like the Bloomberg terminal, right? It's kind of like a big, you know, it looks kind of like that, because, you know, he's rich, right? So, I mean, he was already rich to begin with. That's why he used to do like, you know, like what's it called, luxury real estate from like age 18. But yeah, they do tend to give like, oh, hey, this stock is And like one of them is one of the stocks that they literally are always like, I swear they're one of those like forever Elon types is Tesla, you know.
Once trusted sources of financial wisdom are now slowly being perceived as greedy grifters. Hey guys, it's Zana. This video was requested by one of you. Shout out Orchid Purple 420. Okay, today we are going to be talking about finance YouTubers. Now this is a very broad genre, so specifically, we're going to be talking about the educational sector. Your Graham Steffens, Andre Cheeks, Meet Kevins. These YouTubers have given practical advice for the everyday person. What's an IRA? What's an index fund? In terms of finance...
See, look, like this. Oh, an IDK if you saw, but there was this transphobic guy who made a tweet begging the question, asking if his fellow millennials went to school with any trans kids. My answer, yes. I went to a small high school with a trans girl in the mid 2000s. Of course she was tough as nails. Yeah, like, you know, the way how people try to act that like suddenly, right, like one day people decide, you know, like it's not, it's like how, for example, once the Inquisition was gone, right, and the laws, right, like making Catholicism, you know, one of the conditions for Mexican citizenship, why you started to have people that had otherwise always been Jewish in secret, right, be willing to finally, you know, be openly Jewish, right, because obviously that's not a direct analogy, right, but it's like, yeah, of course, you know, there are people who, you know, that are non-binary, and it doesn't matter if you happen. Never any fraud there. Nope, never. Hello, Boy Meets Minnie. I'm doing okay. How about yourself? Also, I remembered that you wanted me to look at something the next time I streamed. So, I don't know if you can just DM it to me. No rush on it? Okay. So, like, you know, like, people can come to their, and yes, if you'd like to support me, my puppies, my research, you can always go to my link tree. There you can find my Cash App, my Venmo, etc. You know, because literally anything helps. But like I said, we're really, really close with the book. We're only 18% left, so you know. And we could say the same thing about the rise in left-handed people. The numbers went up and eventually evened out. Right? I mean, again, it's people saying, now that we have a more open society, right, that they dislike the fact that the openness of the society means that people feel comfortable, right, and it makes them do that reactionary thing where they begin to and oh gosh, there's a really good quote about this, but I don't have it on me. But it's Benedict Anderson, right? When it comes to the historical novel and how nationalism was brought about. I think I might. Oh no, I don't have it. And essentially, like all of the nation states, right? Like of Europe, even Latin America, and the United States, right? They literally, the way in which like their nationalism took place, like how it became a thing, was by creating a history that never happened. Like that's why you have these like, you know, like almost beatified, you know, founding fathers and all this other stuff. Because if you think about it, the colonial period of the United States, when you actually had like urban centers from the 1640s to the 1760s, that's a very short amount of time. That's just 120 years, right? Mexico, it had 300 years of colonial occupation, right? So like this idea that there was this like immense long colonial period that blah blah blah, you know, all of these like unique American things, blah blah blah, right? all of that was created in the late 19th century because literally out of whole cloth, right? So again, that's why I always tell people, like, Benedict Anderson's Imagined Communities, it literally shows you how, like, Germany created, right, through its nationalistic literature, the historical novel in particular, right, created history that now people think of as like, that is quintessentially German. But he poses a question to sort of challenge this, right? And what that question is can you, however, assign a nationality, right, to the royal houses of Europe, right? No, you can't. Like this idea that the royal families distinctly represent, Englishness or Germanness or Frenchness makes no sense, right? Because the House of Bourbon, right, it's just a family that has the quote unquote divine right to rule, right, and gets moved around, and there's nothing intrinsically connecting them to whatever kingdom they are part of, right? So, like when they talk, Italy didn't even become one country until what? Well, it didn't become one country until the late 19th century, but that didn't include all of what is, now Italy. And even then, like there was a time when when parts of Greece were considered part of Italy, the Dodecanese Islands and the Isle, they were considered part of Italy, even though they're all Greek. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like there is no, So a lot of these like historical ties that people, a lot of these historical ties are, again, fabricated. I mean, that's the best way to put it, right? And that's usually done through, right, and was done with the historical novel. And now you see it too, where people try to do it via DNA tests, right, via race science, where it's like, well, because there was a congregation of people, that we think we have a mystical, magical blood connection to, right, that somehow that means that however you are and however they were is connected in time, right? And like that literally just does not work. And Benedict Anderson in that book too, he goes into how like time itself, like literally how, and I know people know about like the capitalist view of time, right? Like time itself is something which is only very recently been seen, and this is when it comes to nationalism, right? The idea that something you're all watching, this stream, right? Let's say you all lived in America, right? There is nothing that connects me here in LA, right, with, and I know Boy Meets, I know, you're also from California, so I'm just gonna say, we're just gonna say that you live in Sweden, right? There is nothing that connects just because we happen to live under capitalist time between me here in LA and Boy Meets Minnie in Sweden, right? Like the idea that there is simultaneity is something that is a complete modern fiction, right? In the same way how you're actually Swedish. I knew it. I could just tell. But like again, that's another thing, right? Like people act as though. Also, Cat, as soon as I'm able to get more VIPs, I'm gonna add you as a VIP. I just have no more. You even smell like IKEA. I love that. You even smell like IKEA. Oh my gosh. I once watched this video of these people that they like legit, like, I don't know what happened to, because like this was years ago. People probably remember it, right? Where they would go into like IKEAs and like try to like, you know, spend the night in there. And I'm just like, look, like, you know, like that is not a comfortable place to sleep. You know what I mean? It's like, one, like they have to like essentially keep themselves in like cupboards, right? Because they can't like go sleep on the beds because the cameras, let alone, you know, other people, you know, like the security. But yeah. Anyway, but yes, that's why I think like this idea, like right wingers try to use the idea that nationalism has always existed, right? And that is actually a conceit of nationalism, right? Like Italians think that they are modern day Romans, but they're not, right? Like there is nothing connecting them at all, right? Like they have constructed an identity that they think connects them to ancient Rome, but there's nothing substantive in that, right? That's, again, their... Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, in India, in India, people think Hindutva is a 5,000-year-old idea. Exactly. Same thing with Zionism, right? Same thing with Zionism, right? It's like, oh, yes, the Jewish people have always wanted to blah, blah, blah. No, that's literally not true at all. I say unfortunate. I was about to say unfortunately. But what I mean to say is that, I have the Spanish version. I don't have the English version of Dr. Shlomo Sand's book, The Invention of the Jewish People. But like one of the things that he's talking about, which I always found quite interesting, is that up until 1880, right, like the different racialist ideas, right, the scientific racism, right, were essentially unquestionable, right? They were seen as like that. This is what biology is meant to show, right? Like this is what biology teaches, right? But afterwards, you have a huge change of that, right? Now, a lot of this is because things like physiognomy, right? Or, just Gobineau is just worth less than nothing. But it's in this context that the idea of like people returning from where they come from, right, becomes a thing, right? Like they're like, and that's what creates this idea that there is like an Urheimat for each and every nationality that has been constructed in the 19th century, right? Like, but you know how it is. All roads lead to Rome. Explain that. You got me there.
The educational influencer was, I think, considered one of the most trusted as opposed to someone like Ty Lopez. But people are starting to distrust them as well. A few weeks ago, that was made even more clear in a video by CoffeeZilla. The peak of this distrust has been prompted by a video from CoffeeZilla called YouTuber Bank Won't Let Me Withdraw Money.
They were talking about a bank promoted by YouTubers. It's now become a casino, and users can't get their money out.
In short, YouTubers such as Graham Stephan
Oh no.
promoted a product that has put many of their followers in financial ruin. This product was Yada Bank.
What? Oh my gosh, that's just bad. Over 1 million people playing and winning with Yada. Oh yeah, he's such a IDKY Hassan goes on his show. Well, I think I don't know why. Personally, like I never understood why Hassan was always such a big had such a, until very recently apparently, gave a lot of slack to, kind of made a lot of excuses for a certain box individual, right? And only when it became like, yes, they're literally visiting, like, committing war crimes on stream, right? By crossing the green line, by visiting, a double war criminal, like Norman, right? With like Norman would being upset with Destiny for being, the way how he is, right? And people can tell that Norman doesn't get riled up like that all the time, right? Like, that's why it is kind of comical even to people who, do know Norman to some extent, right? Because it was all like, what are you even doing here, right? Like Mr. Wikipedia, like, just kind of like, just him just trying to be like, just stop talking, like, just leave, obviously he couldn't do that, but because, like, for example, once he was in his book I Accuse, right, he like meticulously goes point by point by point by point to show that the former prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, right, did things to whitewash Israel, right? Like, that is so much more his style than Mr. Wikipedia, that's not really his thing. That's Alan Dershowitz's thing, to just start off with that. But, to reach the moderates, I mean, maybe, but I have to, like, this is the thing, right? Like, the way how people define moderates in the United States is weird to me, because in the global South, right, and I don't know, perhaps maybe you could also attest to this as well, or disagree, I would be interested to know, right? Like, the moderates that they're talking about are actually very right-wing, right? Like, to me, there is nothing moderate about people who, yeah. Because, like, in Mexico, like, landlords are, oh, good, I'm so glad to hear that, Cat, welcome back. And yes, if you don't want to have to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous ad breaks, you can always, subscribe either with a Prime subscription, which are free for now, still, or with a new, or with a subscription, which the price of them is going to go up soon. So it might be worth your while to get one now before they raise the price on it. I forget what they're going to raise it to, but it's some, Hello, Omega Star. Welcome in. It's so nice to see you. Welcome in. It's like $1. Oh, okay, so it's gonna be $6 and then $7. Okay, that's not. I mean, because right now in Mexico it's 48 pesos. Like, that's kind of, which is about $5, right? That's
banking service that seems to have turned into a casino, and now viewers can't withdraw their money. Individuals on Reddit calling Graham a snake oil salesman that got them.
Like, I don't understand how. Oh, no worries, Omega Star. I understand that you're busy, and that's totally fine. No need to apologize. But yeah, like, imagine, we're gonna start a bank, which, I'm sorry, but like, during September, I wonder if you can get half off a bunch of months of subs. When I did it during September, I did get a big discount, and I think the discount also got larger if you got more months, like, because I usually get like 3. You know what? Now that you told me, yeah, you get a bigger discount if you get more. Now that you told me that conversion rate, now I'm like, wait a second, I have to be wrong. There's no way that it can be. Yeah, 48 pesos is $2.62. Never mind. I don't know why I said it was like $5. I mean, I know when I still was living in Tijuana, that's when the peso was $1 was about 10 pesos. Now it's like double that, so pretty much about the same. You know, a little bit more, but you know. But like the fact that they started a bank, like there is just something inside me that like as soon as someone is like, "Hey, I started my own bank," that just kind of makes me think like this person should not be trusted with anything, much less your money. But still 110 rupees. I mean, you know, that's... I've also heard too that like if you have an address for the, you know, Starlink internet, you know, even though I don't think I would want to give money to Elon Musk in any capacity. Más vale tarde que nunca, exactly. Hello! Oh my goodness, welcome Surfs Raiders. Welcome in, welcome in. I am... Oh wait, welcome Surfs Raiders. And so, yeah, what essentially that leads me to believe, right, is that the fact that they couldn't withdraw the money, right, which technically is a thing that banks can do, but it's not something they tend to do, right? And yes, hello, welcome, Surfs Raiders. Do make sure to check out and subscribe to the Surfs. Thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about that that's just really weird.
Screwed. To be fair to Graham and all the other YouTubers that promoted this bank, including Markiplier, it's not completely their fault. There'd be no way for any influencer to foresee this disaster. In short, the reason users can't withdraw their money is because of a middleman.
Wait a second. Okay, look. Okay. Capitalism has crises. That, I mean, you know, like it's literally like part of the whole thing. Right? Like you anyway.
Dispute between the honest banking partners. The problem is a bit complex, so I'll link some articles that will explain this in detail if you're interested. But essentially, two intermediaries, Synapse and Evolved Bank, can't agree over transaction and balance ledgers. As a result, thousands of customers have been unable to access their funds because these companies can't agree on how much they have or don't have and who has what. Blaming an influencer for this would be like blaming Mr. Beast if his sponsor, let's say that game Brawl Stars, ever glitches out. It's Brawl Stars' fault if their game glitches, not his. Yet one peek at Graham Stephan's comment section today, after this fiasco, shows you just how much animosity there is still towards him. On the surface, this seems like a case of a mob angry because everyone else is angry. But it's not. CoffeeZilla even acknowledges that there is no way for these YouTubers to predict this disaster. This is because this animosity has been brewing for these educational finance influencers for...
Like, I don't know, like right now that I'm looking at the four of them, Surfs Raid, yeah, apparently I was like unsure first because I've never had a YouTube raid before, so... But then Looney Tunes came out with the announcement, I was like, oh my gosh. But yes, if you'd like to help out with my research, we're so close. 82% funded. We're so close to getting it. This book for my research. But seeing like these four like financial on YouTube, yes, no, I see that. And like I said, welcome in everyone. I am Shakespeare. I am a cultural historian. I usually stream about, well, my areas of expertise are Jewish and Latin American history, and so yeah. Glad to have you all here. Make sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to, and sit and get cozy. But I don't know, just like I don't know. There's just seeing all these four again, like having seen videos of them. I don't know, like especially because they always give that dumb like, oh, I don't know. I didn't want to get into that.
Am I about to clap some millennial money cheeks? Except for Grant, the only intelligent person on this freaking panel of bozos.
You have people who claim they no longer watch them. Others accuse them of being scammers. Meet Kevin's entire subreddit has completely turned on him. What's interesting?
Yeah, like yes, that is true though. That like Kevin did make it seem as though like Elon, like this was his thing, right? This was his thing, right? Was saying that Tesla what was like the stock to have forever, right? That it's like worth more than gold, right?
Interesting about this phenomenon is that the criticism isn't just towards one guy. It's towards almost all educational influencers across the board. I'm gonna call them that for the rest of the video. It's shorter and makes things easier. So, why is everyone turned on them? I can answer that question for you in 2 words. Greed. The algorithm. That's technically 4 words, but I never know if people count the and the whenever they use that phrase. Let's go back to 2015, where social media was filled with these scammy salesmen who
Oh my gosh. Does everybody remember when YouTube actually used to look like this? Man, this is taking me back. Like, wow, I remember. I also remember getting this stupid ad all the time. As someone who knows a tiny bit about Tesla, that's hilarious. Tesla, a good investment. I mean, again, it's like one of those things where like because Elon tries to sell it as a tech company and not a car company, right? Like it raises so many questions, right? Let alone the fact that he got what 56 billion. Like literally you could end like hunger twice over with that amount and still have 16 billion, right? Buys Tesla stock, so pretty much.
as financial gurus.
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini here.
They showcased their fancy cars as they gave advice to their audience. They talked about how they got rich.
Okay, look, Boy Meets Mini, I understand that, like, I get it, right? Like, people like racing, people like their car, but, like, I never got the whole, like, this is my blank, and, like, somehow that's supposed to give them, like, credibility. I don't know, like, because, like, I have seen it happen where, like, people are like, oh, well, look at this cool car I have, right? But it's like, okay, like, I don't know what you want me to do with that information.
Spectacular view behind them. This influencer showcased beautiful women, interviewed high-profile celebrities, and seemed to live a life of luxury. The problem with these types of videos were they were always selling something, the promise of their lifestyle. And for the low payment of $1,000 in sole YouTube.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? It's always like $1,000, right? Like, I need a, okay. There's an enthusiasm and culture beyond the status symbol of what a car is. Right. No. I understand that. I just always felt like kind of like when people try to use the fact that they have a particular car, right, as a kind of like, therefore you should believe whatever I say, right? Like, I guess I don't understand how that works, right? Like, okay, and of course there's nerds who know everything, just like, yeah, exactly, or like historians like myself, right? Like, obviously you don't go get a PhD, right, in history if you're not like a nerd who wants to know tons of stuff, right?
You could become a millionaire if you buy my course. It was so salesy and inauthentic, almost everyone and their grandma knew these videos were essentially ads.
Kind of obscene how every detail of this video is so purposeful.
Oh my gosh, it's Ethan Klein.
The bookshelf, and you want your money so bad, dude. It's thought about this video a lot.
However, by 2016/2017, you had new voices coming into the finance genre, education. They were teaching viewers all about credit, what the hell dividends are, an ETF versus a mutual fund, and all about the stock market. Some of these YouTubers, such as
See, look, like, oh, I have a fancy, expensive car because I made a lot of money in real estate. Listen to yeah, like that, like that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, it's like that's supposed to be their, like, bibliography, so to speak, right? Like, this proves that I know what I'm talking about, and it's just the car, right? As if and it's always used to mean, particularly when it comes to things like finance, right? Which, I mean, yeah, because the car is obviously a luxury item, right? Because cars have their utility, right? Their use value as such, but obviously the exchange value and the symbolic value that they have are, beyond that, right? But then they use it to, I call the BMW the Luftwaffe car. Well, I mean, yeah, they built plane engines back then. What's so weird to me is like the fact that companies, like the very, I mean, if people need me to explain what this company did, I mean, I can explain the product that they made that's infamous, but the fact that IG Farben, essentially, and other companies such as that, but IG Farben, right, like provides the IDF with some of the stuff that they use, is just such a like curse, like that is the most cursed thing. But yeah, I mean, plane engines. And it's funny too because like with Mercedes, right? That's a very uncommon car, so to speak, right? Like it's seen as a very luxury only vehicle, foreign car here, right? Right? In the United States, but like in Mexico, like the city bus is it's Mercedes Benz. I don't know. I just always found that funny. Cause like literally like a bus ticket for you to ride the bus until you need to get off, right? Is like essentially like 5 cents, right? I mean the issue is that the issue, there's just a lot of other issues, right? That like, the roads aren't necessarily well maintained and, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the transport price is very inexpensive. What's even funnier is the JDM bros will say, at least I have a Toyota. Toyota is made Japanese tanks and Jeeps. Yeah, I mean, you can't fault them though. Mercedes trucks are goated. I mean, Fun fact, Mercedes is now on American insurance companies' shit list. Many don't want to insure them because of how much the repairs cost. Oh, yeah. I remember there was this one car that, like, the way how it was described to be, the reason why it was uninsurable is because literally if you get hit, like, in any way, that, like, the car just, like, collapses apart, right? And those are the Daewoo's, which, and on the West Coast, like in Southern California, I've seen quite a few, right? But like when I was told that, and then I asked someone that owned one, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's really hard to get insured for my vehicle, so they have to go to those like, I mean, like if you've ever." If you've ever like scrolled through like the TV channels or whatever, and you start to see this guy in like a ranchero hat and being all like aseguranzas, where they start all that stuff in Spanish. This is where this person had to go because they were literally the only place that would insure their car. Hyundais are a nightmare for insurance companies because they're easy to hack. Oh. That's why. Is that why they? That's one of the cars, right, that they put on the list, or they put on the list quite a while ago, actually, of like, be careful if you park, overnight somewhere because like they'll probably steal your catalytic converters or whatever it was. It lets you unlock via phone. What? Okay, that's just. No. Why? I mean, like, it's like I never understood the people that automate everything in your house when, like, you can summon it out of a parking spot. Oh. No. Like, like, I'm sorry. No. I don't really care about it coming out of a parking spot. I care more about, people not stealing the car, right? Because, I mean, I was in an accident, that I had to go to therapy for, in fact, and I recently had an operation, which is why I wasn't streaming for quite a bit, because I wanted to recover. So, but regardless, so, like, right now, cars are not the thing I want to be thinking. I'm feeling better. I felt good enough to stream, right? Like, I thought I was going to stream this coming Monday, Okay, so it's funny you say the old-fashioned way, right? Looking back, because I know someone that, I forget how, this king's ransom amount that they paid to get, like, literally 360 camera coverage, right? That's like, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. To me, it just seems so extra. I'm just like, you literally just don't want to look back, like, that's good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just, yeah. Also, is this George Gammon? Because if it is, oh god, he's so annoying. He's one of those, like, end the Fed libertarians, right? But he's so libertarian that he lives in, like, Colombia or something.
Meet Kevin even did deep dives on some of the scammy salesmen that dominated early YouTube, getting sued by Grant Cardone. These guys.
Oh my gosh. It's weird that he would post that though, because the. Oh, Grant Cardone. Oh, okay, yeah. No, yeah, you're right, yeah. We'll see, like, it just shows, like, I don't, the 10x man, oh yeah. But a family car, ridiculous, yeah, no, oh my gosh, that reminds me, one time when I was in Chicago visiting family, because, Chicago is actually a very Mexican, has a high Mexican population, for many reasons, but mainly because a lot of, like, a lot of the industries in the 80s, late 70s and 80s, just wanted to get as much cheap labor as possible. So, anyway. Particularly in, like, the textile industry, I've noticed. But anyway, it doesn't really... but one of the things that, like, really, really stood out to me when I was... like, in Chicago was, we were going down this street because we were going to go downtown, right? And I kid you not, like, there was this, like, semi-truck, like a huge thing, right? That was trying to do, like, I guess, like a 360 point turn, because that's what it felt like. Because it was in this narrow, it was, like, trying to, like, back out and, like, positioned itself back so it could go down the street, but it just came out like the wrong way, and now I had to go back in, and so, like, traffic was held up for, like, a while as this semi truck in this very narrow, like, 2-lane street, right? It's just it's just, oh, hello Soul Life, welcome in. So,
We're actually carving out their own section in finance YouTube, where viewers saw them as
okay, I'm sorry. One white boys of tiki torches? No. We already saw what y'all did in 2017. No. Bitcoin shirts? No.
a separate entity from the scammy salesmen. They were educational, trustworthy, and informative.
I'm here to provide free, easy-to-understand financial education.
Dare I say, millennial Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman?
Oh my god, not Dave Ramsey. Oh gosh. Like, I know someone who, like, once read one Dave Ramsey book and essentially took it as, like, I don't know, like, there was the revelations of John, right? And then there was the revelations of Dave Ramsey, and then the canon of the New Testament was closed, essentially, for them.
This era in finance YouTube was, I mean, honestly, kind of life-changing for me. Parents are immigrants, so their financial advice to me was just, save money, credit cards are bad. And school teaches you nothing, by the way. Or maybe they did, just wasn't paying attention. But
Okay, I don't. Okay. Of course, we have to pray to our Lord and Savior Henry Kissinger. Of course. Anyway, that's a really weird characterization of immigrant parents, right? Or of right? That like they would tell their kids that school teaches you nothing, right? Doesn't that like I don't know? Maybe it's for me, like growing up, like education was seen as like you're either going to work, right? Like work for the rest of your life, which I mean, you have to do anyway, but like you either are gonna like, work in from the get go, right? Or you're gonna go get an education, right? And my parents heavily stressed getting it in education, because they saw it as one, a good in it of itself, but two, like no family I know is like school teaches you nothing. In fact, like oftentimes I've had to speak with people who either attend the institutions I've taught at, or sometimes even neighborhood college students, right? Like because their parents know me, right? And they're like, oye, Shakespeare, ¿por qué no vienes a platicar con mi hijo? Para decirle para que se pone las pilas. And, typical stuff, right? Typical stuff. And usually a lot of it is, they might feel compelled to get a specific degree, right? Like a doctor, right? A medical doctor or a lawyer or, right? But that's not uncommon, right? Whereas like for me, my parents, understood for myself, I suppose, that like I wanted to be, like an academic, and they saw, and they saw, academics as important, but education as important too. And again, like I don't know anybody here that's like anti-education in that way, but I don't know. Oh my gosh, we should make our own crypto, call it libcoin, so right wingers can own the libs and trade it on the market under the name Pwn. Oh my gosh, that what's so sad, so life, is that they would buy it. That's the thing, right? It's like you literally could do a whole rug pull operation, right? As I've learned that they say, right? And they would still like buy it, like they would buy it, right? So I don't know, like it's weird to say that like immigrant parents are say that school doesn't teach you anything because but I don't know. I guess it depends on the time and place. Like my great grandparents did not value education. They felt a man should do physical labor. No, I mean, like I get that. Like definitely, like my grandparents were of a generation that said like men should know, cis men should know how to do such and such things, right? And like how to do basic carpentry, how to do because that was especially back in the day, right? That was far more common. But yeah, so I guess I can see that. And then I'm also wondering, like, I know that with Jewish immigrants as well, right? Kind of in a in a broad sense, right? Also tend to put some emphasis on education that maybe is not as universal, right? But even still, like I don't know. We are talking to people born in the early 1900s who only had an 8th grade education. I'm sure their lack of education had a lot to it. Yeah, true, sure. Yeah, like, I mean, and I think, and the book I was talking about was called The Death of Expertise, by Tom Nichols, who recently updated his book because in this in the 2017 version, he argued that if ever a major crisis happened in the United States, which in this case was COVID, that then the anti-intellectual, anti-expertise aspect of American culture would go away, right? But it didn't. It got worse. So he literally, and I think this shows, kind of like his academic integrity too, that he actually said I was wrong, and so I want to write about how I was wrong, and what were the where we went wrong, right? I think to me that says a lot about him as a scholar, because there are lots of people that once I've published the book, right, unless I mean, even if people can just have found new evidence to whatever, right? There are some people and this can either be the scholar or the people who are huge acolytes of the scholar, essentially say whatever he said or whatever she or they, etc., said in 1982, right, is just forever correct, which is not even true, because for example, when it comes to Timothy Schneider, right, and other people who have talked about Ukraine and Russia, for example, right, before the Soviet archives were opened, a lot of the stuff that they had to go off on was records that were kept by other countries, in this case Nazi Germany, Sweden, countries that surrounded the Soviet Union at the time, if they're going to talk about the Holodomor, for example, right? And so there's I don't mind grifting right-wing dollars as long as it's not as an influencer. Oh yeah. And worse and worse and worse. Oh yeah, it just keeps going downhill. And that's why I think that again, this is why I'm saying I don't have any problem with with Wikipedia as such. In fact, Wikipedia just did something that just wow, I would never have expected this, which is they put the ADL on their list of bad sources, essentially, of sources that are not reliable, which is a hell of a lot more than any institution, right, has done. Major institution has done in the United States, right? Because it's true, right? They literally whitewash actual anti-Semites all the time. I mean, and Rabbi Shmuley too, especially. He's always oh, this person, I mean, whatever, right? It's the Zionism has changed so much of particularly in the United States, the morality that people are supposed to uphold or do uphold, right? That it just boggles the mind sometimes. But maybe he wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe if things were bad for a while, that then the vaccine eliminated COVID, then everyone was fine. Maybe people would trust experts more if that happened. I mean, right. That was his thesis in the first edition, right? That people will one day come to realize just how much they need expertise, because as a society, right, we are becoming more and more specialized as time goes on, right? In the Middle Ages, everybody was given a generalist education, right? They were given the 7 liberal arts education, right? Which was rhetoric, scientia, retorica, scientia, musica, etc., right? And universities were places for, typically were aimed at, clergy, right, for priests, right, or monks, etc., But also there were some, you know, like aristocracy that they would get an education too, right? And you know, the idea of a Renaissance man, quote unquote, right? Which the example is always, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, but I just, you know, but the point being that, you know, even people that are experts in, you know, subfields, for example, like myself, like in, you know, like looking at Latin American history, right? Then people even specialize even more in that, and even more and even more and even more, right? As their research is done. But there are people that stress this generalized view because they see it as like traditional, but that also was because it wasn't necessary to have so many experts, right? Like the amount of the amount of different areas of expertise has only gotten larger, right, in number, whereas the confidence, right, in the United States for the established experts, you know, from a previous era has gone down. But that also came with a general disregard for experts, right? Oh, hello, BKK. And anyone that says Wikipedia isn't based is anti, or do I mean woke? Oh my gosh. So his idea was like, you know, people tend to trust experts when, you know, when times get tough, right? Like when something medical happens, right? You know, like back in the day, barbers, right, used to do surgeries. Right now we have specific surgeons of specific, you know, parts of the body, right? Brain surgeons, cardiac surgeons, etc., 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 right? Yes, I am part of the Transcend TV network. And what his one of the things is that he said is that expertise has become heavily politicized, which in previous eras was never the case, right? Where you had because America does not have a civil service, right? Which is which grew organically, right, with the development of the state apparatus, right? Hello, Megastar. Welcome in. Welcome in. On the Twitch side of things. And so, you know, because of the fact that there was never a civil service that developed that was, paid a state salary, right, by the state, but was meant to be apolitical in nature, right? That instead we have, everything being run by corporations and everything, which goes against the idea of having a completely, divorced from politics type of thing. Because, in the United States, think tanks are such a huge thing. And to me, personally, I have to be quite honest, I wouldn't feel comfortable working for a think tank. It doesn't matter if it was, leftist in general, but just the idea of a think tank, I don't know, there's just something about that just, I don't know, just seems kind of weird to me. You and I kind of have the same username? Yeah.
Part of the reason why I opened up a Roth IRA was because of Graham Stephan's videos. I was so annoyed by all the Ty Lopez's promising this unattainable dream, but these finfluencers were like a breath of fresh air. They actually gave me something practical to use for free that I could do every day. But there's a problem with sensible education content in finance.
Which, by the way, the difference between a Roth IRA and a regular IRA is that, one, IRAs, right, individual retirement accounts or investment retirement accounts. Sometimes I've seen them described as both. I mean, I have researched the history of the the rise of banking, so and finance. So which again, if you want to help with my research, you can always go to my throne and help get the last 18% for this book paid, so that way I can start reading it for my research. But essentially what it means is that you do not have to pay the taxes on it in the future, right? Instead, they count in your taxes now, right? Like when you put money in your Roth IRA, when you do your taxes, the money that you put in there at a certain percentage is considered taxable income, and so you pay it now. So then later, right, with all the money you've made, if you invested it, well, right, you don't pay it once you reach 59 and a half years old, right? Once you can start taking out of it without a penalty, which is typically 59 and a half years old, then you can do that and you won't be charged tax on it. That's the difference between a Roth IRA, right? Whereas a regular IRA or a regular investment account, right, is that, every time you make money off of something, every time whatever, that you get capital gains tax, etc., blah blah blah.
I do, so much of it. Unlike Mr. Beast's content, which thrives as long as his brain works, some genres have a natural limit on the amount of content that can be produced. I believe finance content that is sensible and educational is one of those genres. There are only so many ways one can explain the difference between a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA, or which credit card is the best for beginners.
I'm not, and again, that's just me giving definitions. Like, I would never give financial advice ever. That's not my place, right? That is not something I've studied the history of, the rise of finance and capitalism in general, but that's for historical purposes, right? I could not tell you, an investment strategy, right? Like, in fact, that's why I always tell people, like, if you do want to try to do something along those lines, right? Like, and I understand a lot of leftists, either we can't because, we don't have exactly large pools of disposable income, right? Or something about the idea of participating in the stock market feels off, right? Like, oh yeah, that you'd have to set up a new command for that one, Looney Tunes, here on Twitch. I think it functions the same way though, because it's the same bot. It's the exact same Stream Elements bot as on YouTube, so it should work the same.
Take me, for example. I think I represent one type of viewer that a lot of these educational influencers had. I'm an average person just looking for a way to optimize my current income. I'm not trying to take a big risk right now, picking some stock where I can go all in and become a millionaire. I was literally just looking for how to do the basics. I got what I needed, and then I kind of stopped watching them. And that's a problem for these guys. As you should know by now, creators are paid based on how much viewership they garner from their videos. And sponsorships, of course, we'll get back to that. The more views they get, the more money they make. If you have a viewer base that will eventually stop watching you after, let's say,
by the way, if you're on YouTube or even if you're on Twitch, make sure to go to my YouTube and subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a like. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers so I can start actually getting paid on the YouTube side, so which would be nice.
7 videos, that money is eventually going to be less than it was before. I see this a lot in the education space in general. People get what they need and then they leave. Take fitness, for example. The beginner just getting into gym culture will often watch a fitness influencer to build their own fitness routine and sometimes their diet. After they perfect their form and build the routine, there really is no reason to keep watching. This is why a lot of fitness education channels have inconsistent viewership. They're channels are a revolving door of new people coming in and out. In theory, this sounds okay because there will always be new viewers.
You know, it's funny because like at the same time, like all of the like weird like masculinist channels, right, that are all about like gym bro culture, right? They have a like they're the ones that build, but I think that's because they do like live streams and manosphere content, right? But like so like there's this one, like he's like a ortho bro, right? Like one of the right-wing orthodox fitness content is so right-wing it's dangerous, right? Exactly. And that's what I'm saying, like I'm thinking of a church of the, well, anyway, it doesn't really matter, but like he does gym stuff, but then he also does like all of this weird like conspiracy theories, debates, or you know, theological discussion, and it's like this really weird mixture of the two things, right? And yeah, it is, right? It's like it should not be that fitness as such has becomes a domain, right, for the far right or the new right, whatever they want to call themselves, right? But instead, it has become a domain for them, mainly because in some sense, right, like the bro science stuff and all these other things kind of allows them to insert a lot of other things. I mean, that's why one of the factions of the new right is, for example, like, you know, you have like Nick Fuentes and his following, right? Then you have like the more like neocon faction, right, with like the Ben Shapiros, right, and the Matt Walshes. Then you have this other group that's like against all of them, which is by Bronze Age Pervert, right, who like post weird homoerotic pictures all the time of like very scantily clad men, but like has some weird like fascist thing that he's saying with it, right? And usually, and also, I mean, like he published his doctoral dissertation. In fact, I believe he attended Yale. So it's not, but like all of his orbiters, they're all like blank bra, not bro, but like BRAH bra, like soul bra, carnivore bra. You know, it's just one of those things, I guess. But so much of it is like fitness, right? They use fitness as a way to, I kid you not, push genetics. Push eugenics. Right-wing propaganda. So
Brands, it's not so great. The influencer is unable to build a loyal community. They keep leaving after everything they need. This leads to less likelihood of those new people purchasing whatever product. However, the fitness genre has been able to solve this. Lifestyle content and fitness entertainment is a growing community with consistent viewership. Viewers are watching for the creator.
Wait, that name, Lean Beef Patty, wasn't there something that that NCC covered that was talking about Lean Beef Patty? That they were like talking about her? Forget who it was. Oh, I remember now. It was Gokanaru. That Gokanaru likes to, that he's like really into. Yeah, anyway.
Rather than just the info. So, after
Good night, Demo.
topics, these finfluencers
Buenas
managed to build an
noches.
audience that would actually become a community, like in fitness entertainment. Is it even possible to do that in the genre? The person that sticks around is
I have to say, like, one of the things I have noticed about a lot of these finance bros is like they look at like like they watch HGTV, like when they do the like what's it called, the staging, right, you know, for like real estate, when they want people to come see, and like they think that that's like good interior design, right? Because like if you look at their kitchens and everything, like you can tell that they don't really use their kitchens. You know what I mean? Like it's like you know that the kitchen is like one of the major parts of a home, right? Like of a family, right? That, you know, like because the kitchen is one of the areas of the house that like is constantly having to be cleaned, right? Because it's always in use in some way, right? Like, oh, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you have to go to the kitchen and go get it there, right? Same thing with like bathrooms and other stuff, right? But mainly it's like the kitchen, the sitting room, right? Like places where people congregate, right? Tend to be like you have to clean them multiple times, right? Like every time you cook, you have to clean up afterwards, right? But like, and that usually means that they tend to be slightly messier, right? And I think that's totally appropriate. That's totally fine for them to have, you know, like especially like if you, like for example, like something that like an invention that like undoubtedly changed the lives of the average Mexican person was the blender. I kid you not. Like the blender just like you have to have a blender, right? To make the salsas, all of that stuff, right? Like you have to have it. So the fact that Mexican people will have multiple, right? One for chiles, right? Because you don't want to make a milkshake and it has some chile inside. You don't. Trust me. You don't. It doesn't taste good. But you know, if you know, if they have multiple things like that, like, you know. But another thing too is like, you know, you might not want to eat all the food, so you leave it there on a plate or blah blah blah, right? But like their houses are always like they're overly clean, right? And it's like they either, and I actually used to know someone who's a friend way back in the day, definitely didn't live in my neighborhood though, that actually had like maids essentially, right? But they would just go there to clean their house like every month, and I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like it's kind of weird to just be like, oh well, you, or every 2 weeks or whatever it was, like, oh yeah, they just come over and then they just like wash all the plates and wash. I'm just like, what? You know, I don't know, but maybe that's just me.
The safe investor who invests long term. Again, they've already learned basic finance from early videos. I mean, you could probably look at any of these guys' videos, sort by oldest, and find that everything used to be basic and educational. Today, it's all clickbait. This is just my speculation here, but I think the person that watches the finance influencer isn't someone who's experienced. And I'm not trying to diss them. Anyone is free to share their opinions on how to invest or whatever. I just doubt that people who are experienced in the world of finance are interested in hearing the opinions from people who make their money solely using content creation or selling courses. The type of viewer that these guys are able to keep are probably beginners, but beginners with a sense of, I want more. I'm going to be rich too. For these viewers, it's like, okay, you taught me how to set up my Robinhood or whatever brokerage, but tell me what stock is the next Tesla so I can make a lot of money. And that is where the greed starts to kick in.
Right, because that's where like the to the moon I so fancy.
Instead of giving that same level-headed advice.
Oh my gosh, this is like such a horrible, like the exposure and the color of the like the temperature of this photo is just horrific.
As they've done before, many influencers started to feed into the emotional and irrational tendencies of their viewers, like producing videos on which individual stocks to buy.
Okay, so I think it was let's see who said that. No, what was it? Someone said it. So, it might have been here in it might have been here in what's it called? In Twitch chat. But yeah, essentially like they do make content on like invest in this stock, but then they will say the like magic phrase, right, that they think, you know, gets them off scot-free, right? Which is like, this is not financial advice. I'm just telling you to invest in this thing.
Hey everyone, me Kevin here. I just came back from a run and I am so excited to be able to share my stock portfolio with you. I'm going to show you every...
See? Like that's what I said. Like, every time I've ever seen anything by Kevin, because he's also in well, a lot of them live in California, but because I mean, like, if you're gonna do like luxury real estate, I mean, California is like the place to do that if you have the money to do so. Otherwise, it's a horrible place to like, if you're looking to buy a house, if you're not wealthy. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't even want to go into it because it goes just.
Let me tell you right now, there isn't one expert that can tell you which stock will make you $1 million. Otherwise, we'd all be listening to that expert. Unless it's Nancy Pelosi. If you happen to see her buy something, you do it.
Tic-tac-toe. A winner.
So, why would these YouTubers think of themselves as any different? They don't. But these videos do get views. Investing is always going to come with risk, obviously, and advice has to be catered for the individual. But for simplicity's sake, and this is not financial advice, one of the most generic and common pieces of advice that's often given is to invest your money in a broad index fund like the S&P 500.
The advantage of doing this is that index fund investing has outperformed 99% of active investors over a 20-year period.
But that's boring and it doesn't get any views. It's been said.
Also, you want to know something interesting, like a historical fact, I guess. So after the stock market crash of 1929, right after the Great Depression, the guy that came up with the idea of diversification, right? I kid you not, won the Nobel Prize in economics. The guy that said, maybe don't just buy stock in one company, literally got the Nobel Prize in economics. And I just think about that all the time. Just like literally what seems like a very simple idea, right? Literally won him the Nobel Prize in economics. Because like apparently nobody had ever thought like maybe it's a bad idea to just buy stock in one company only. Because
1,000 times before. Buy them sometimes. In order to cultivate recurring viewership and get that delicious ad revenue, many abandoned that level-headed image by introducing these riskier plays. They didn't outright tell you which stocks to buy because giving financial advice in the US is regulated. It was more like, hey, here's what's in my portfolio. And these viewers tended to follow the world of finance religiously because they needed to know how the market was doing so they didn't lose money. This is how many of these influencers were able to transition into news. Now, this was all fine and dandy until so many of their stock picks began to lose their...
Oh my gosh, this type of shirt that he's wearing here? Like, you know what's another thing that's like very annoying about a lot of these like finfluencers, as she's calling them, is that so many of them don't live in the United States. They instead go be quote unquote expats, right? I just call them neo-colonists, in other countries, right? Where where they cause a rise in the cost of living for the people that are from there, right? But they get to essentially live far above the standard of living they would have had otherwise here. And a lot of them, well, quite a few of them have moved to Mexico, right? And like he's wearing a guayabera, which is like something in Yucatan that people wear quite a lot. So it's like seeing that, and I'm just like immediately brought back to this like, oh gosh, these are the gringos that just like, they don't have a job, but they're just investing or whatever, and
money.
And yet they never they have like American flags in their house, and like it's interesting to me how like they think that them being proud Americans abroad is okay, right? But even the muted ways that people from even somewhere where like Mexico, being, some pride in where they're from, is like a horrific crime. It's just like unbelievable.
His entire channel grew off of a scammed cryptocurrency, Shiba Inu coin, and penny stocks.
We are seeing millionaires printed.
That is how he grew
his channel to 600,000 subscribers. Obviously, you should be called out for that.
In a video uploaded in 2023, Carson Gall found that listening to Andre Zick would give you a return of -5%, listening to Financial Education -53%, Stock Mo -68%. This video by Cooper Academy that was uploaded last year in July found that Meet Kevin's stock fund that he titled My Top 7 Stocks was up barely 2%, while the market at the time was up 32%. What's funny, well maybe not for people.
Again, like, these are such bad results, right? I mean, these are really bad, right? If the market is up generally 30%, right, let's say, and you've only made 2%, like, that means that had you just gotten, like, a basic index fund that you know, or whatever, like, there are different ones depending on, there's, like, QQQ, there's just all these different, you know, Spider, Spy, you know, all these different ones that they have. SPDR Spider, that's the one that's just the S&P 500, right? So it's the 500 biggest companies, essentially. Or if it's a blue chip growth, whatever, fund, right? Like, literally, having invested in that, you would have made, like, 16 times more money on your investment than listening to an apparently, you know, well-known, high quality, oh my gosh, is that really a Tesla Cybertruck? Like, okay, Boy Meets Mini, if you're still in chat, and it's fine if you're not, if you had a, you know, go run some errands or just, you know, got bored or whatever. But, like, I had not seen one yet until I had to go to Hermosa Beach, right? And I finally I had to go visit a friend, right? This is just, Hermosa Beach is enormous, but, and, like, I'm literally in some tiny neighborhood street. Like, you know, like the really tiny, like, one-way, you know, LA streets, right? That, like, are residential, but they're one way. So you know, if you miss the house, you have to go all the way back around, which is, like, a very California thing, right? And then I saw one of these things, the Cybertrucks, and I was just like, I've never seen something so just ugly. Like, why would anybody get this? It just looked egregiously horrific.
That have lost money is that a lot of these influencers sell a course in buying stocks. I don't see anything wrong with this per se. Gatekeeping is dumb, and anyone should be able to give their opinion. But should you?
See, I hate that. Like here is where I disagree. Gatekeeping, as such, Moanoa, welcome in. I see you now. Thank you, Sole, for so gatekeeping is necessary sometimes, right? Like, for example, like, there are all the history channels, right? Or the history YouTube channels, I should say, right? And, like, you know, whether I go to the armchair historian or the casual historian, or I mean, they're all just white dudes, you know, from, like, Kansas, I don't know. And essentially, you know, they're just from, like, suburban, you know, any suburb USA, right? And, like, you can tell their biases very quickly. I can tell you that. And, like, the way how they have spoken about, for example, Palestine, oh my gosh, it's so, like, and even some of these videos are years ago, but you can already tell they're, like they're equating all Palestinians with hummus, right? And other, you know, blah blah blah, right? Like, essentially, if Palestinians ever did anything to defend themselves against the Israelis, that is, like, a crime that is passed generationally to them. Yeah, for some of these history YouTubers, right? And like the reason why, why I often and do for the stream watch their stuff and like say like that's not true. We need to recontextualize it, etc. Is because like just because someone can tell you a historical narrative does not make them a historian, right? Like they can call themselves the armchair historian, right? And say, oh, well, I make it very clear that I'm just an armchair historian. But the problem is people do lend credence to what they say, because very often they will cite sources, right? But what they do with those sources, right, is something else, right? Oh. So that's where I disagree. Like, gatekeeping does have to happen, right? Like this is where I think that book, The Death of Expertise, comes in very handy, right? It's like there are experts, right? Like Norman Finkelstein, for example, right, does not have to contend with, right, debate destiny, right? Like that is something that just would be pointless, right? Like the reason why he was willing to debate, I think it's ignoring you. Let me see. Or maybe I haven't even set it up. That could also be the thing. But but in essence, like, I didn't. Yeah. The reason why Norman has respect for, even though, he thinks that, and I'm talking about Benny Morris, right? Respects Benny Morris is because, he's, in fact, there's a book that I've cited for my article series, right? Which if you are, if you subscribe to my Substack or a patron on Patreon, you get access to those, right? And those are like academic articles. I usually don't write them necessarily as long as an academic article, right? Which could be I don't even know how much that would be. Definitely reaching almost 5,000 words, right? I don't want to make them super, super long, right? But, just a history, looking at the history of Zionism in Palestine. And I've already published the introduction, right? Which I decided to, again, I'm going to publish section by section. And the difference is that there is a book that I cite that's called The War for Palestine. And it's a book, and it's an edited collection of essays, right, from different historians. And Benny Morris is in that group, right? Even though it has Ilan Pape, even though it has Avi Schleim, even though it has, blah, people who are diametrically opposed to the, political viewpoint that Benny Morris has, right? But there is this fundamental respect that he was willing to, that Benny Morris was willing to show the evidence, like there's evidence of, of ethnic cleansing, etc., 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 and willing to be academically honest in that. Now his conclusions that, it was inevitable anyway, and it, it probably would have, blah, 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 I don't want to get too in deep, but he essentially is like, it probably would have been better had, you know, if Israel would have been like a higher, even higher percentage Israeli, right, from the get-go. I'll put it like that, right? Which is just disgusting for me, right? Like that's his stance, right? But he still went into the archives, the IDF archives, the Haga, the military archives of the Israeli state, and rightfully talks about their expulsion of the Palestinians, because I want people to know that before, like, if you hear the Zionist narrative, it will tell you that May 14th, right, or May 15th, whatever, Yom HaAtzmaut, right, which means Independence Day. How are they holding the megaphone? They will tell you that Ben-Gurion declared independence, and like right after they declared independence, a 7-nation army came in and would not, decided that they wanted to end the fledgling state of Israel. That is not true. Plan Daled, right, which was, again, there was Plan Aleph, right, A, Bet, B, Gimel. Well, Gimel is technically G, but C, right? And then they made a new plan, Plan D, Dalet, right? Essentially to do the mass expulsions, right? That was put into effect in February of 1948. So from February to and there was stuff going on since November 1947, when the partition plan was passed through the UN General Assembly, right? Illegally, in my opinion, as a historian, but you have it where that the reason why the Arab states that did join the fight, against the Zionists, was because before the 15th of May, they already had months of their capital cities of their, like Jordan, huge influxes of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees. So that is what compelled them to have a response. But as Avi Schleim in his book, God, now I'm forgetting the title. It's collusion across the Jordan or something like that. The kingdom of Transjordan already had a sort of a secret backdoor deal, so to speak, right? Where they said that they would not attack, right, past the limits of the Arab partition of Palestine, right? Like whatever was allotted to the Arabs, right, the Palestinians, that the most powerful armed force at the time, right, which they only sent in like 3,000 soldiers, I think, anyway, because the Palestinians had no armed forces. They were not, the Jordanians already had an agreement, right, across the Jordan, with Golda Meir, right? Because Golda Meir wanted Jordan to remain neutral, right? That's what I've mentioned this story before, right? That Golda Meir dressed up as an Arab woman, right? so the story goes, right, and went to go speak to King Hussein, I believe, or was it Abdullah? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the king of Transjordan at the time, right? And he essentially told her that he couldn't, like, not send in the Arab Legion, right? And because of that, the agreement was what Golda Meir, who again is the worst thing to come out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, besides everything else. Future Prime Minister of Israel during the Yom Kippur War. Anyway, that they already had essentially a secret pact saying that they would that the Jordanians would not take any land or would not send soldiers into parts of Palestine that wouldn't have been given to the Palestinians anyway, right? Because remember, the Emir of Jordan, the King of Jordan, initially was part of and also in my article I go into detail in this. So again, if you're on subscribe to my Substack or member on Patreon, you can read it there, right? Where this goes back years before, right? That for the YouTube, I think I have it set as YouTube. But anyway, as I was saying, that because the British had already made these deals, right, with the Hashemites, right, who at that time were one of the most important families in the entire Arab world, because of the fact that they were the guardians of the holy cities of Makkah and Medina, right? That they wanted to create a large Arab state, right, pan-Arab state, and rule it, right? And when that ended up not happening because the Europeans had other plans, he at least wanted his sons, right? Abdullah in Yardun or Jordan, and then also Faisal in Iraq, right, to be given, to become the monarchs of those newly created countries by the British. So you can see that all of these overlapping issues, right, are going on. But one of the things is that, again, you have, the King of Transjordan effectively saying, I will have to send in the troops, right? I will have to play toy soldier, so to speak, with toy soldiers. But, West Jerusalem, right, which is what became the capital of the Israeli part of Israel after 1949. It effectively was like the ethnic cleansing there happened, even though if you look at a map of the city of Jerusalem, it's surrounded on three sides by what should have been Palestine, right? Like what should have been, but was instead under the administration of the Jordanians. So again, hello Zedzir, good to see you, welcome in. Oh, I'm doing good, I was recovering from an operation I had. Finally felt good enough to stream. So because of that, West Jerusalem was completely depopulated. All of the old Arab neighborhoods were essentially they were ethnically cleansed. And good, yeah, thank you. And then there were other places like Deir Yassin, which, if people don't know the history of that, I am gonna get to it in my article series, but I'll just quickly go over that. was the site of a horrible massacre, right? Because remember, there were three armed contingents, right, that existed at this time. One was Hahagana, which means literally the defense. There was the Irgun, right, which famously the Irgun symbol, right, shows both historical Palestine and Transjordan, right, because they were revisionist Zionists, right, because they wanted to revise the document which essentially tore asunder, so to speak, right, Palestine from Transjordan, right? So, which comes from, oh yeah, I'm still recovering, but I feel so much better for sure. And so essentially, revisionist Zionism, which was started by Ze'ev Jabotinsky, is the founding ideology of Likud, right? So like that's why, like, when people say, oh well, it's just Netanyahu, one, we all know that's not true. It's not just Netanyahu. It's obvious it's not just Netanyahu, because even with Menachem Begin this was an issue, right? It's that Zionism from the beginning, like before it was even, right, had even its like leftist, right, contingents essentially saying, like, we have to do a full ethnic cleansing, blah 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 blah, right? Again, this is stuff Ben Gurion, who was part of the Labor Party, right? And in fact, the Labor Friends of Israel, right, which is a British organization, actually has a longer history with the Zionist movement, protecting it, defending it, siding with it, even though in a weird way, and there were even like socialists that for some reason took this stance too, where like they wanted the disintegration of the British Empire, but they wanted the colonization of Palestine by the Zionists. So, it's it was a very strange thing. But anyway, going back to what's going on in Palestine is you have like the massacre of Deir Yassin, which, I kid you not, literally the 200 people that lived in that village, they never wanted to fight. They specifically said to the Irgun that they surrendered. They were willing to live in peace in the state of Israel. Like, oh, if you win the war, like, oh, if you guys win, like, essentially, you guys won. So we will be good citizens of your country and everything. Like we just want peace, right? Like we just want to be here in our own homes. The Irgun lined up the entire population of the village of Deir Yassin, which again happened before Israel declared independence. It happened April 9th. So just over a month before, the Zionist narrative says that the hostilities began, I should say, between it and the Arab countries, which forced them to move the Palestinians away. Right before that, they already had the Deir Yassin massacre, and again, they literally lined them up against a wall, and I don't have to go any further. You can all finish the sentence yourselves. And it's in this context, right, that when people hear about this stuff, right, that all of the Arab capitals, right, Al-Qahira or Cairo, Beirut, Dimashq, Damascus, Amman, right? They all feel compelled to respond, right, by their population. A lot of them are very reluctant to do so because they don't really want to have to fight, especially because the British mandate at the prior to May of 1948 was not over, right? So the British still were there, etc. But again, like I said, a lot of the narrative that gets told today by people like Elon Levy and Benjamin Netanyahu, and even other people that pretend that there is such a thing as a leftist Zionism, don't fundamentally want to come to terms with the fact that, again, that the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, the horrors that were done, and again, I just told you of one massacre, but there is a video that I did want to watch some other time, though, that will actually, people have probably seen clips of it, because I know that it's, become kind of well known, but still, essentially, what it is Benny Katz, who was a historian, he got a master's in history at the University of Haifa, and I mentioned his work before. He went and interviewed, half of his interviews were of Israelis, half of his people that he interviewed were Palestinians, right? That was his kind of thing. But essentially, he was discussing Tantura, right? Which even Walid his surname is escaping right now, but Walid, that was even sort of never really written down, right, even on the Palestinian side, right? It wasn't really on the documentary record on the Palestinian side, to figure out what happened over Tantura, because one of the things that Israel does and did during those times is that it would either, and in fact the town that Benjamin Netanyahu's private residence is at, which is like, I'm not even joking, it's literally like a wannabe Malibu. That's what makes it just even worse, like beyond everything else, already like beyond, but it like pretends that it's like a Malibu or something, which is now called Kaiseria, right? But before it used to be the Arab town of Qasriya, right? Again, still named after Caesar, right? And it was the capital of Roman Palestine at one point. That's why it was Caesarea, right? Because Caesar is how you actually say Caesar's name, Julius Caesar. And so what they would do is they would either demolish all of the homes and then build up a new town over the, once they had cleared everything, and would give it a Hebrew name, right? So then that way they could literally fabricate a history that never actually was the case, right? So there was never, right, like a Jewish town called Caesarea, right? That existed, for hundreds of years, but there wasn't a Palestinian one. And so that's what they would do, is they would either destroy and then build on top of, right, to hide the fact that there was something there before, or the other way that they would do it is they would, like, their national park system, which the national park system in the United States has also functioned in this way too when it came to the indigenous peoples, etc., right, was to then create national parks, right, and stuff, and to destroy it and instead plant tons of trees and blah blah blah, right, so that then they could also erase that history. So again, there are different methods. Oh, thank you so much, Looney Tunes. I appreciate that. And so that is one of the ways in which that, I mean, this also goes back to another point too that I've mentioned in chats before, is that this is why, like, when you go to Israeli beaches, there's a reason why they don't want people to like dig right at the beach, because they literally have hidden the former inhabitants, I'll put it like that, underneath the beaches. So like, people are sunbathing, right, and beneath them is a, so which is for sure the case in Tantua, which they've admitted to it. But I want to go over that video at some point. But we'll have to see when that will happen. Let's see here. Oh. For the crabs. I mean, crabs technically do eat. Yeah. I'll just leave it at that. They eat anything. Let's see here. I am going, I think. You're on the wrong side when you're desecrating graves? Yeah, no, for real though. I mean, and that's always been a thing though, like like even now in Gaza, right, you see that happening, right, that the IDF is literally like digging up grave sites, right, Islamic grave sites, which again have our is the Islamic rules of what to do when someone passes are very, I've always told people, and this actually shocks some people when I tell them this, that actually Islam is far more like Judaism than Christianity is. Like Christianity, from like, again, my own experience, is actually more foreign feeling than anything Islam has. In fact, there even is the ability where again, a practicing Orthodox, whatever Jewish person can enter a mosque, but they cannot enter a Christian church, because they, even Maimonides, again, who wrote this judgment, recognized that because there is no like object of veneration, I'll just put it like that, right, that going there is substantially different from Christian church, right. Another thing too is because historically Islam has never like actively proselytized by way of bringing people inside of mosques, right. It's always functioned in many different ways, but it's not like like evangelical churches, right, like come on down this Sunday, and that's part of their that's kind of how they go about it, by inviting you into that space. But okay, so let's see here. Okay. Oh, thank you so much for shouting out, Holy Lazy Duck. Wonderful person. But I'm getting hungry. I'm gonna go make some food. I don't have a stream channel, at least not anymore. Well, I mean, still, it's just a way to recognize you, even more so than the VIP. But I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna go make some food. We're gonna raid out on the Twitch stuff. And yeah, we are gonna go to the 27 Club. Make sure to tell them hello, and we will be there and I will be back, hopefully, very, very soon. If everybody could please get in the box, get in the machine. Thank you again so much for joining me today. Hope to see you all again soon, very soon. Bye.